You married him with your boots still on because the floor was frozen, because the preacher rushed, because he didn't want to wait for you to change. He signed his name with a rifle slung across his back. You signed with the name your mother gave you, but it didn't feel like yours anymore. By dusk, you were on a wagon seat beside him, the mountains crawling taller by the minute, your hand gripping the edge of a wooden crate that smelled like kerosene and cattle. He didn't speak on the way, just spat once. Tossed you a blanket that still smelled of another woman. You didn't ask who. You wouldn't have believed the answer anyway. You ran the first night. No shoes, no bag, no map. Just breath. And the feel of the ring digging into your skin like a second spine. The snow-swallowed sound. And still, he followed. You heard him behind you. Boots too heavy for mercy. Curses spit like kindling. But you didn't stop. You couldn't. Not after what he said when the door closed, not after what he did with the belt, not after he whispered, "You'll break easy out here." You break at sunrise. Your knees buckle near the creek's edge. Your feet are blood and cold. Your hands shake so hard you can't feel the air between them. Then, a shadow. Not his, not Law. Taller. Still. He kneels beside you, not touching, not questioning. Just kneeling. His coat is worn hide. His fingers carry ash and a sage. His breath smells like cedar. He lifts you, but only after you nod. That's the part you remember. He waited. Even when you couldn't speak, he waited. You wake to firelight, inside a small lodge, one cot, one hearth. You're wrapped in a blanket that smells of pine and smoke. Your feet are bandaged. You cry, not because of the pain, because you woke up, and no one claimed you yet. He's there, across the room, sharpening something. Not a blade, a spoon, wood, quiet. He doesn't look at you, but he knows you're watching. You whisper, "Thank you." He doesn't nod, doesn't smile, but the sound of his knife slows, just for a second. You sleep again, because there's nothing else your body can do. And while you sleep, the fire doesn't die, because someone keeps feeding it. And for once, it's not you. If this kind of story moves you, feel free to subscribe. I tell them here often. Let me know where you're listening from and your local time. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You don't dream. Just breath, warmth, the memory of snow no longer touching your skin. When you wake, the fire's still alive. Low, steady, cared for. You're alone in the lodge, but only just. Outside, you hear the crunch of boots, not hunting you, just walking. You sit up. Pain blossoms in your feet, sharp and pulsing. You wince, pull the blanket closer. There's tea waiting by the hearth. You don't remember asking. But it's warm. You sip. It tastes like pine bark and wild mint. You drink the whole thing, because no one told you not to, because no one told you anything. And that feels new. He returns with wood stacked in his arms, snow melting on his shoulders. He sees you sitting, nods once, sets the wood down gently. Not like a man proven strength, like a man who knows weight. He stokes the fire, adds 2 logs. You watch his hands, broad, scarred. He speaks, 1 word, not English. But it sounds like permission, or maybe offering. You whisper, "I don't know what that means." He doesn't repeat it, doesn't translate, just returns to sharpening the spoon. You say, "My name is Catherine." He pauses. Then, softly, barely above the sound of breath, he says it back. "Catherine." Like a promise, like a question he's not afraid of. You eat broth that night, slow, careful. He breaks the silence only once more, points to your feet, then the fire, then his chest, says, "Warm, heal, stay." 3 words, no demand, just sequence. You nod, say nothing, because for the first time in days, you believe staying might be an option. Before bed, you take the ring from your finger. Your skin is bruised beneath it. You press it into the coals. Watch it blacken. Watch it fold. When he sees the smoke, he doesn't ask. He only adds another log to the fire without looking away. You sleep deeper that night, the kind of sleep where even the fear lets go. And when you wake, you remember your own name first, not his, not the law's, yours. The third day you stand, not steady, not for long, but upright. Your feet ache, wrapped in linen and resin paste. But they hold. He watches from across the room, arms folded, one brow raised just slightly. You breathe through the sting and say, "It hurts." He replies soft. "Good." You blink. He adds, "Means you're still here?" You almost laugh. You don't. But you do nod, because he's right. Outside, the snow's begun to sink. Not melt, not yet, but shift. Pine branches drop their burdens. Paths appear where before there was only white. You step to the doorway. He follows silent. The light is bright, too bright. You squint. Your eyes water. He hands you something, a thin strip of hide to bind your hair. No ceremony, just care. You tie it back. Step out. He doesn't stop you, but he walks just behind. You move through knee-high snow, slow and deliberate. Each step a memory of pain, but each one yours. You reach a small ridge below a stream frozen over, a shed, a garden, long dead under the frost. You say, "This is yours." He shrugs, then says, "Was empty." You glance sideways, then whisper, "So was I." Later he brings you a bowl. Inside, something soft, warm, and bitter. You eat half. Ask, "What is it?" He answers, "Pounded pine root." You wrinkle your nose. He smirks barely, says, "Good for blood, for memory." You ask, "Do you remember who I was?" He answers, "No, but you're not that now." You stop chewing, then finish the rest, because you're not. Not anymore. That evening he lights the fire before you can reach it. You watch him. The way he waits until the flames catch before moving away, like he's done this for someone before. You ask, "Do you live alone?" He doesn't answer. But the silence is thick with names not spoken. You don't press. Some stories don't open with questions. They open with patience. You sit by the fire, hold your feet near the edge, feel the blood come back, feel the breath deepen. You whisper, "I don't know what I owe you." He shakes his head, then says, "Nothing owed, only stayed." That night you dream of ash forming your name in the snow, and for once it doesn't melt away. You wake to a sound you haven't heard in weeks, water dripping, not from the roof, from the trees. The snow's beginning to surrender, slow, soft, almost apologetic. You sit up, stretch. Your feet still ache, but they move when you tell them to. You say your name out loud, once, twice. It lands in the air like something whole. He's already outside. You see him through the open flap, splitting log, sleeves rolled, breath fogging with effort. The axe moves like it belongs to him. You step out. He glances your way, then nods toward the shed. You follow. Inside you find a pile of things. A pot, a torn coat, a length of frayed rope, an unfinished cradle, its frame rough but sturdy. You run your fingers along the edge. He says, "Was making it before." You ask, "Before what?" He doesn't answer, but the pause is enough. You say, "Is it for her?" He doesn't ask how you know. He just says, "Yes." You spend the day mending the coat, stitch by stitch. You don't ask why it's not his size, or why the lining was cut out. You simply repair what can be fixed. Leave the rest to memory. That evening you find a tin cup on the hearth, steam rising. Inside, a broth made from bones and roots. You sip. It tastes of something old and healing. You say, "Thank you." He replies, "Still not owed," then adds, "But maybe earned." You take the ring he doesn't know you still have, the one you didn't burn. You bury it beneath the garden, in frozen dirt, no ceremony, no stone, just a whisper, "Not again." He watches from a distance, not asking, not intruding, only present, and that's enough. Before sleep, you take the carved cradle frame into the lodge. You set it near the hearth. Begin sanding it smooth. He passes you a cloth, soft, oiled. You nod. Together in silence, you begin, because some things don't begin with birth. They begin with building. You don't speak for 2 days, not because you're afraid, because there's nothing urgent to say. The world inside the cabin has slowed, not stalled, just settled. The fire holds without coaxing. The broth no longer burns your tongue. Your hands move without hesitation, stitching, sanding, measuring. Even the quiet feels earned. He leaves at dawn and returns by dusk, every time with something in hand, moss for the cradle's lining, wild roots, a sliver of smoked meat wrapped in waxed bark. You never ask where he goes, but you always prepare a place when he returns, a bowl, a fire, the softest half of the blanket. One evening you ask, "Did you choose this life?" He doesn't answer right away. Then, after everything else said no, this said yes. You nod, because you understand. You never chose to run, but staying. That feels like choosing now. The cradle takes shape, not perfect, but strong. You add a strip of your old dress along the inside, soft flannel, a comfort that remembers a former skin. He carves small symbols into the frame, a pine cone, a wave, a single open hand. You don't ask their meaning. They don't feel borrowed. They feel given. You mark the days in the dirt by the door, not for counting, for rhythm. Every fourth mark you draw a curved line. He notices, points to it once. You say, "That's when she kicks." He nods, then carves a matching mark into the door frame. You whisper, "Thank you." He says, "Not thanks, just presence." That night it rains, not snow, not sleet, real water. You step outside, barefoot, let it wash the ache from your toes. He watches from the lodge. You don't hide. You lift your face to the sky and let it hit you. Every drop a decision, every breath a beginning. You say her name, for the first time, out loud. "Elizabeth." It doesn't echo. But the trees bend like they heard you anyway. The thaw arrives without drama. The ice doesn't crack. It recedes, quietly, ashamed, almost. You open the door one morning, and the world has shifted shade, brown where there was white, movement where there was stillness. Hope doesn't smell like smoke anymore. It smells like wet soil, like pine sap, like air that hasn't known fire in weeks. He begins clearing the path to the creek. You follow, not to help, just to witness. Each step you take, you expect the old ache to return, but it doesn't. Not in your feet, not in your breath. He pauses halfway down the slope, gestures for you to pass. You hesitate. He nods again. So you go. Not quickly, not proudly, but first. At the water's edge, he kneels, rubs ash into his palms, washes them clean, then offers you the same. You mimic his motion. The water stings, but you don't pull away. You whisper, "For her?" He replies, "For both." You look into the current. It doesn't reflect you clearly, but you recognize the outline. It's enough. Back at the cabin, he sets stones in a circle, not around the fire, around the cradle. You say, "What does it mean?" He says, "Boundary." You ask, "Protection?" He shakes his head. "Invitation." You let that sit, then place your own stone. Smooth, dark, carried from the riverbed, inside the circle beside the cradle's leg. He nods once, then again. That night a bird calls just after dusk, high, sharp, northward. He stiffens. You ask, "Danger?" He listens, then, "Warning." You pack a satchel before asking what for. Old habit. Your hands shake slightly. He watches you, says they're not here yet. You ask, "But they will be." He says nothing, but brings out the flint knife he's never let you touch, places it in your palm, says, "You choose how this ends." then steps back, and tends the fire like nothing has changed. But everything has. You sharpen the knife slowly, not because it needs it, because you need it. The motion, the scrape, the rhythm. You sit beside the fire, the cradle at your back, and drag the edge along stone until it sings. He watches from the doorway, not supervising, just present, like always. You ask, "Have you done this before?" He nods, then adds, "Never like this." You know what he means? This isn't war, it's preparation, not to fight, to stay. That night you lay the knife beside your bed, you place your palm on your belly, say her name again. Elizabeth. She kicks, harder this time. You smile, even as tears gather, not from fear, from knowing she's ready, even if you're not. You begin reinforcing the door, not with wood, with story. You hang the red thread from your old hem across the top beam, knot it twice. Beneath it, you pin a page torn from your journal, not words, just a charcoal sketch, your feet in snow, then your feet in firelight. He adds to it the next day, marks the outline of the cabin, the trees, the shape of her name in his own tongue. Together it becomes a map of arrival, of memory, of refusal. Thomas arrives on the third day of stillness. You don't hear him approach, but you feel the wind shift, a familiar tension in the trees. He steps into the clearing like someone who's walked back from a line he didn't mean to cross. You open the door before he knocks. He holds out a folded sheet, wanted notice. Your name? Reward? $50. He says, "Town thinks you're dead or stolen," you say. Not wrong on either count. He doesn't laugh, but he doesn't leave. You make tea. He drinks, then says, "They'll come. Not today, but soon." You nod, then ask, "Will you stay?" He doesn't answer. Just removes his boots, sets them by the door, and sits near the fire, as close to yes as you need. You add the notice to the circle of stones, folded, pressed flat beneath your river rock, not as threat, as foundation. Because you've built this place not from safety, but from choosing to breathe here. Thomas mends the fence without being asked. You watch him from the porch. He moves like someone trying not to be noticed, but every hammer stroke echoes his need to matter again. You don't ask where he's been. His silence is a kind you recognize, one earned, not inflicted. Inside the cradle waits. The stones around it remain undisturbed. Every morning you light a match and let it burn for 3 seconds, then snuff it out. He watches you do this once, asks, "Why only 3?" You say, "That's how long it took me to decide not to die." He doesn't respond, but later you find another match left beside the bowl, unlit. Respect, not replication. The girl from before returns, the one who helped you once with herbs whose name you never caught. She arrives at dusk with a pouch of bark and a bundle of cloth. She nods to you, then places the cloth inside the cabin. No words, no transaction, only offering. Inside the cloth, a carved rattle, a tiny tunic, and a note in a language you can't read. You fold it carefully and place it in the box. You whisper, "She already has kin." That night the wind shifts again. The fire won't hold. Your breath shortens. You wake twice, in sweat. He sits by the door, back straight, eyes sharp. You ask, "Now?" He nods. They'll be close. Thomas rises from the floor, no blade, just his body. The girl braids your hair without asking, then wraps your hands in cloth soaked in cedar water. You feel the moment tighten, not break, tighten, like the air itself has held its breath. You hold the knife again, but not like before. This time, not for defense, for declaration. Because if they come with law, you'll greet them with lineage, with her name, with your presence. And the truth they can't erase with ink. They arrive at dawn. No knock, no call, just boots in the frost and breath in the trees. You open the door before they can. because this is still your home, even if they came to say otherwise. 2 men, 1 pale coat between them. A third stands behind, clipboard in hand, quill already inked. They expect you to flinch. You don't. Your hair is braided. Your eyes are level. Your hands rest on the top rail of the cradle. The child hasn't come yet, but she's near. And so is the reason you're not running. The man in the pale coat steps forward. Catherine Miller? You nod. He unfolds a sheet, reads slowly, as if he expects the words to hurt you more when they land with space. Wanted for evasion of contract, theft of property by marriage, and disappearance under suspicion of mental defect. You say that's a lot of ink for a woman who refused to die. He ignores it, points to the cabin behind you. We are authorized to remove you or place you under medical review and claim the unborn child under protective custody. Thomas steps onto the porch. He holds no weapon. But his presence answers the question they didn't dare ask. The girl follows. She carries a pouch, places it on the ground. The man flinches, as if healing is a threat now. You say, I'm not leaving, and neither is she. He asks, who gave you authority? You nod toward the cradle. She did. Silence, then paper ruffling. Ink drying. The third man writes something, hands it to you. An option. To relocate. To return for evaluation. To be processed safely. You tear it once, then twice. Then place it in the fire behind you. No one stops you. The man in the pale coat exhales through his nose. You'll regret this. You say, I already did. Now I don't. They leave slower than they arrived. Like the trees might mark their faces. Like your voice might follow them. And maybe it does. That night you carve a new mark on the cradle's edge. Not initials, not symbols. Just a line. Straight, deep, unbroken. He asks, for what? You say, the day she wasn't taken. And you don't sleep with a knife anymore. You sleep with your hands folded over your stomach, waiting to meet the girl who gave you back the word, mine. The girl comes before the next moon, not in thunder, not in screams, but in heat, in breath, in silence broken by one small cry. You birth her by the fire, knees pressed to earth, palms digging into the wool blanket. He kneels behind you, not guiding, not leading, just holding your shoulders with 2 steady hands as if to say, you don't have to rise alone, but you can. The girl is small, warm, more real than anything you've ever named. She doesn't cry long, just once, then presses her cheek to your chest and sighs. That sigh will echo forever in your memory, more than any name, more than any threat, more than even the moment you ran. The others gather after. Thomas brings water. The girl lays the first cloth. He stands to the side silent until you nod. He steps forward, looks down at her, then at you, says nothing, but places the bone rattle into her open palm. She grips it. He turns and walks out. You don't ask where. He always returns when it matters. Later the snow returns, a soft curtain, no threat, just reminder, that the world still moves, still covers, still uncovers. You nurse her by the fire. He sits across from you, carving something, not for protection, for teaching. A stick, a name, symbols you've never seen. You ask, what will you call her? He replies, that's not mine to give. You nod. You look down at her. Say, Elizabeth, because we both earned it. She opens her eyes, dark, clear, steady, and for a moment you feel the room widen, as if this lodge just became a cathedral. You press her footprint into clay, place it in the box with everything else. The burned contract, the thread from your dress, the page with your old name crossed out. You whisper, not to forget, to remember better. Then close the lid. The fire crackles once. The storm presses against the door, but you don't flinch. You've already survived. Now, you build. Spring doesn't arrive all at once. It peels back the cold like skin, slow, shy, deliberate. You count the changes not by temperature, but by sounds. Bird song again, water trickling under the ice. The soft creak of wood expanding in the sun, and her voice, not words, just noise, tiny vowels, murmurs. A language only you understand. You answer her in whispers. I know. I see you. I'm still here. He builds a bench beside the garden. It's not much. A flat plank, 2 stones, but he carves something into the underside. You find it one afternoon while sweeping pine needles. It says, "She stayed." No name, no date, just that. You trace the letters with your finger, then carve another word beside it. Free. You begin planting again, small things, radish, mint. A bean that might not take, but you plant it anyway, because effort is belief in root form. You press her foot into the soil beside you. She giggles, kicks, leaves her own furrow. You don't fix it. You water it instead. At night, you reread the first page you ever wrote here, the one where you asked no one for permission. It still smells like cedar. You smile, then write a new line beneath it. She wasn't rescued. She was witnessed, and she chose to stay. You fold it, place it in the box. Beside the other truths, you wonder how many pages one life can hold. Then answer yourself, as many as it takes to remember fully. The next day the girl returns, the one with no name who helped you once. She holds a parcel, wrapped in oilcloth, bound with thread. Inside, a tiny quilt, patches from coats you never wore, colors that don't match, stitches that hold anyway. She says, "It's not perfect." You say, "Then it's exactly right." You wrap Elizabeth in it that night. She sleeps warm, and you, for the first time, sleep without the knife nearby. Not because danger is gone, because you've written a world that refuses to be erased. You wake to birds nesting in the rafters. You don't chase them out. You let them build, because this house has held worse noise and quieter grief. Now it holds songs, tiny ones, half-built, high-pitched, hopeful. Elizabeth hums now. At first it was just air, but now it's melody, not yours, not his. Something new, born here, named here, unrehearsed. She hums while she watches you mend cloth, while he carves new stakes for the garden. While the girl writes names on bits of bark she hides beneath the porch. You ask her, "Why names?" She says, "In case someone forgets who came through." You nod. You help. Because remembering is a kind of protection too. Thomas returns with seeds, corn, beans, sunflower. He doesn't say where he got them. You don't ask. You only ask, "Will they grow?" He shrugs, then says, "If they're not afraid." You smile. Because nothing here is afraid anymore, only aware, and that's stronger. That night you burn the last page from your old journal, the one that still had your married name. You tear it carefully. One line at a time, you feed each piece to the fire with her watching. She doesn't ask why. She watches your face, then reaches for the flame. You stop her gently. Whisper, "This part ends with me." She blinks, then presses her hand to your chest, right over your heartbeat. You whisper, "Exactly." In the morning, you write a new line on the wall near the cradle. She was born where no one looked, but where everything watched. He traces it later with his finger, then adds one word beneath, "Known." You run your hand across the letters, then place your palm beside hers, together, because that's the only kind of memory that matters now. You receive word before the courier speaks. He crests the ridge hunched, hesitant, not like someone carrying orders, but someone delivering weight. You meet him at the edge of the clearing. He removes his hat, offers a folded page, no seal, no signature, just ink and consequence. You read it once, then again. Clearwater County recognizes your child as a dependent of the late Thomas Miller, pending petition of custody and welfare assessment. You fold the paper, don't tear it, yet. You ask, how far behind are they? The courier says, not far, then adds, I didn't see a baby in that house. You nod, say, good, then walk away. He doesn't follow. He doesn't need to. Inside, you find her asleep in the quilt, the fire low, the others watching your face. You hold up the paper, say, they're coming again, he asks. With guns? You shake your head. Just names. He says, that's worse. You nod. Then place the paper in the box, not at the top, but underneath the journal. Buried like something known, not forgotten, just not honored. You spend the afternoon marking the path with ash. Every 30 steps, a circle. Every circle holds a stone, not large, just smooth. Easy to step over, easy to miss. But there for those who look. Hope walks behind you. She drops petals into the circles, one in each. You say, why petals? She says, because they'll ask, why? And that's when we win. You almost cry, but instead you kneel and kiss her forehead. That night the sky breaks open, not with rain, with stars. So many, the fire seems ashamed to burn. You sit outside, cradle in your lap. You say, they'll try to take her. He replies, then we show them what can't be taken. You whisper, like what? He answers, presence, breath, and the name she gave herself when she didn't cry. You press her close. Say, and the name I gave back. Because this story never started with silence. It started with one woman choosing not to vanish. They arrive with a paper crown of authority. A sheriff, 2 record men, and a woman in polished boots holding a clipboard like it holds the truth. They call your name, not like a question, like a verdict. You step out with your daughter in your arms, not behind anyone, not protected, present. The girl with the herbs stands to your left. Thomas, behind. He to your right, silent, hands free. The sheriff says, we have reason to believe this child is unlawfully concealed from court authority. You say, she's not concealed, she's in my arms. He replies, we can do this clean or not. Either way, she's coming with us. Hope doesn't flinch. She presses closer. The clipboard woman steps forward. Catherine Miller, you are not recognized as a lawful guardian under remaining contract law, therefore under Statute 1247. You raise your hand, not high, just enough to part her sentence, then walk forward. Cradle her tighter. Say, she wasn't born from law, she was born from refusal, and no paper you carry owns her breath. They hesitate. The woman lifts the clipboard higher. He steps beside you, places one hand over yours, then turns to them, says only, she stays. They shift, uncomfortable. The younger record man glances toward the garden, sees the stones, the circles, the ash lines like quiet warning. The sheriff spits once, then says, you'll hear from the court. You reply, I hope it listens better this time. They turn. No arrest? No handcuffs? Only threat left unspent. You stand there long after they vanish into pine. Hope presses her head to your collarbone. You whisper, that was her first trial. He says, she passed. You nod. Say, so did we. Then walk back inside. Not to hide, to rest. Because holding her in plain sight is the only resistance that matters now, you don't mark the day as victory. You mark it as continuation. The paper they brought curls now in the hearth's ash bed. The ink didn't scream when it burned. It just faded, like all the names that tried to rewrite you. You stir the coals with a stick. Hope toddles nearby. She hums her morning tune, off-key, soft, sacred. The girl strings flowers by the porch. Thomas sharpens tools that don't need it. He watches the tree line, not for fear, but for memory. You sit beneath the sun for a while, hold Hope's foot in your palm. Her print still fits inside your hand, but barely. You whisper, "Grow slow." She doesn't answer, but her breath settles in rhythm with yours. That's enough. You open the box, add one final page, not torn, not inked, just a small square of woven cloth, the first thing she ever held. You fold it once, place it in the corner, then close the lid, not because the story is over, because it no longer needs to be protected. At dusk, the wind shifts again. This time you welcome it. It brushes your cheek like a knowing hand. You leave the door open. Let the fire warm the doorway, the grass, the world just beyond your porch. No need for barriers, only thresholds. He sits beside you, doesn't speak, doesn't need to. You say, "They'll forget us," he says. "Then we'll remind them, gently." You smile. Hope curls against your lap. She holds the rattle, shakes it once, then stills. You place your hand over hers, then say aloud and for no one, "I was never just a bride. I was never just a body. I was never just gone. I stayed. I chose, and I am still here." The wind doesn't answer, but it carries your voice exactly far enough.